Jeez, I can't believe this is actually happening now, huh? 2 days of sleepless nights. But anyway, I just want to thank everyone that's come out to support me and to the red and yellow students for the year. I want to start by giving you a story about two naughty children. And I want you to try and figure out what sort of rules they're breaking. Can you do that? So the story goes like this. Sally and James are two very nice kids. They love playing outdoors, outside. And whether it's climbing in the trees, swimming on the jungle gym with their toy cars or action figures. But one day they're sitting in class and they really want to go outside and play. So they come up with this idea to go out and pretend that they're going to the toilet. So they ask the teacher if they can go to the bathroom, and she gives them permission, but permission for the bathroom only. And they leave the classroom and go straight to play with the toy cars, reenacting some of the James Bond scenes that they had seen in a movie together. And while they were doing this, they actually crashed two of the cars together and broke them. And when they realized the sort of trouble that they could get into, they quickly rushed back inside and pretended as if nothing had happened. So can anyone tell me from that scenario who was at fault and who was breaking the most rules? No one. Nicole, but you don't need an answer, but it's fine. It's always got to be Nicole with a hand up. But anyway, well, you would see in the logical sense would be that both of them were involved in the same scenario, right? Both breaking the same rules. But you'd be wrong. Because you see, according to society, Sally's not allowed to play with cars. And you see, you'll hear things like, she's such a tomboy, or, you know, that's not very ladylike, or conversely, man up, that's how girls behave. And it's these sorts of things that socially govern children's lives today. But before I go too deep, I must take a sip of my water, because my mouth gets dry. Before I go too deep, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. So if I had to describe myself in one word, I'd probably call myself an oxymoron. And the reason I say that is because I'm probably one of the most energetic, tired people you'll meet. And I'm definitely going to go for a sleep before boozing tonight. But I'm also one of the silliest, smartest people you'll meet. Debatable on the smart element, but and also one of the most productive, lazy people. But I guess that's what makes me who I am. So I went to a school in Rondebosch called Bishops, and you're probably thinking, classic Bishops boy, you know he's one because he'll tell you he's one. But the reason I mention it is because despite the large opportunities that Bishops gave me, there was also a lot of negative that I learned from there, especially towards gender stereotypes and patriarchy. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And the sad thing is that it took me 18 years of my life to actually realize this fact. Sorry, not that I need the notes, it's just... it took me 18 years of my life to realize that. And, you know, we didn't really speak about gender at school. And it was only really until I got to university that I started becoming aware of this. So I actually started at UCT doing a business science degree in marketing until I realized I had to do accounting, economics, and maths. And I was like, nah fam, that ain't for me. So I decided to change to BA to study film and media studies. And it was only until second semester that I was chatting to a mate about potential electives that I could pick up. And he suggested I do gender studies. And being the lazy, productive person I am, the first thing I asked was, is it easy? And he said from what he had heard it was, did the classic Jono thing and took the easy route. And I'm so glad for that conversation, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have ended up majoring in gender studies as well. But what about the people I left behind in commerce? Yes, they may go on to be very successful accountants, marketers, business people, you know, but very few of them actually get exposed to the harsh realities and social issues that are happening today. But that's not to say that you shouldn't become an accountant. Am I doing something here? You see, I'm in the non-digital age with... Am I even on here? There we go. Classroom. Where was I? Yeah, so I'm not saying that you shouldn't become an accountant. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is by the time you get to university, it's largely too late because people have to start the conversations because people have formed their own biases and opinions already. But that's not to say that you can't start the conversation now. That's ultimately what I'm trying to do. But it's about creating that space for conversation. And what I'm trying to say is that it's far easier to try and learn something than it is to try and unlearn it, hence my title. But the point I'm trying to make here is that it's, we need to create these spaces at a school level. Create spaces that people understand the fluidity and spectrum of gender so that they can be provided with conducive spaces for open discussion so that later on in life they don't have to try and break these stereotypes down. And personally, I feel that schooling systems aren't doing that. They're not providing the right environment for children. Instead, they're categorizing kids as boy and girl and making them wear things and act in particular ways and say things according to their gender. For instance, at my school, in order to be a top dog, you had to play rugby and be very popular with the girls. So for someone like me who liked singing and drama, it was very difficult to get that sense of acceptance. But it was still easier for me because I loved playing sport, and that was considered manly. But even within that, there was gendered connotations like hockey is a girl's sport. But why am I telling you this? How does this apply to you now that you've left school? Well, as adults, it's our duty to make sure that the next generation don't have to fight to be heard. It's our duty to make sure that people who can't be heard are heard. So let individuals express themselves freely. You shouldn't have any control over the way people express themselves. And be open to the evolution of gendered language, because ultimately, at the moment, we find ourselves in a place where our language actually can't express the way people feel about themselves. So be open to the way that gender evolves over time. And as marketers, it's very important to take this into consideration. Your paper is a nightmare. Anyway, as marketers and advertisers, we need to be really cognizant of this. And when we're coming up with strategies so that we don't reinforce these stereotypes. But what I really want to take this opportunity to say, begin the conversation. Be the change that should have allowed you more identity freedom when you were growing up. Be the change for the next generation of school children. It's definitely not something that can happen overnight, I realize that, but it's also no good being closed-minded to these sorts of social issues such as gender. And from what I've gathered over the last 2 days, people are definitely open for these discussions. But don't let those discussions die in this room. Take them outside and actually live by them, so that we don't have to, later on in life, try and break down these preconceived ideas. And for those of you that don't really understand and know much about the gender conversation, seek blogs, articles, journals, studies around gender to really broaden your understanding about it and join the conversation. And for those of you that consider yourself woke AF, I want you to use this as a catalyst to try and continue those discussions so that we really can start understanding this together. And as I begin to close, I'd like you to think about your position within society. Everyone holds a type of privilege, and some more than others. But it's about understanding and using this privilege to continue the conversation and make sure that those that are less privileged can actually be heard. And one final thing, Bully, I did notice something yesterday, and sorry to single you out, but there was a picture of a baby on one of the slides, and he wasn't quite sure whether it was a boy or a girl. And my question to you all is, why should it matter? Thank you.